I'm just gonna go upstairs, 'cause I can't get this thing to.
Check, 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 check. 1, 2, 3. Check, 1, 2, 3. Check, check. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
My name is Sandra Santos, and I am the proud principal of World Language Middle School for Columbus City Schools.
My choice was deliberate. I'm a product of Columbus City Schools, so I understood from early on that Columbus City Schools is a caring community of educators. As an instructional leader, I have an opportunity to form a student's future. And so through forming it, I've worked with social workers, teachers, parents. And so as the instructional leader, I can implement various instruction intervention that will help to support students.
So one of the specific resources that I thought was super powerful for me to be a first-year principal was a principal coach. The principal coach role really helped me in the supports of budgeting, knowing how to manage my time, knowing how to support my community, knowing how to build that culture and climate, and knowing how to get my students ready, because even in middle school, as a building principal, my kids have to be ready for the next level, which is high school.
So I always try to let my kids know that they are one of my kids, and I'm going to treat them as if they were my own. And so I think just having that sense of community and giving them a sense of belonging, and I always let them know too that even when they leave me, they will always be one of my students. And so no matter how far removed or how far away they grow older in life, they will still always be one of my kids. And so just that sense of community and sense of belonging, and letting them know that they matter and that they're important, even when they're not at their best sometimes, they still matter and they're still very important.
Columbus is a great place to live and work. Our town has grown into a major urban area. Columbus is the 14th largest city in the country, and so we've grown into a major urban area. However, it still has that small town feel. It has something for everyone.
The diversity in Columbus, whether you're in the city or in the surrounding suburbs, diversity makes us stronger. And so I think that's one of the things that makes Columbus very special. The opportunities that Columbus has afforded to me, and they took a chance on me, I say take that leap of faith and come to Columbus.
I would say you owe it to yourself to work for Columbus City Schools. You will have a rich experience of whatever you choose to do. If you want to work as a teacher, if you want to work at the building level as a secretary, or if you want a central office position, it is a great place to come to network, to hone your skills, and to not only that, but to pour into people.
We are educating future doctors, lawyers, educators, and entrepreneurs. Our students are very important. I tell my students daily that they were great before me and they continue to be great after me, and I mean that because our students have made my teachers great and they have made me great.
With Renee Harris, our host.
Let's see what's cooking.
Three is Zoom.
What I'll do is if we have let's say we're using ground beef for the day.
Yes.
If they know that they need a pound, I'll make them convert that into ounces before they can take it. And so
Pounds to
they'll come
ounces.
pounds to ounces.
Yes.
So when they come to the table, I need to know how many ounces is this, and if they can answer it, they get to finish the recipe. If not, they have to figure it out before they can get their ground beef. So I
And
make
Chef-
them convert every day.
Chef Harris, how many ounces are in a pound?
16.
Ah, that's math. So I guess it's that time to put the batter in the pan and pop that in the oven. And again, what's the temperature that oven has got to be set at? 350. That oven has got to be set at 350 degrees. Now, kids, if you're baking at home, make sure you get some parent supervision before you start playing around that oven. So, it looks like I've got my batter. Now, I'm gonna let the professionals finish this off. Did I do a pretty good job of getting that in there?
Pretty good.
All right, so we've got that oven set at 350 degrees. And tell me again how long this banana bread has gotta cook.
55 minutes.
55 minutes, which is about an hour. That's time. That's math.
Faster than a school bus. More powerful than a chemistry lab science experiment, with the ability to feed over 45,000 students and clean the cafeteria at lightning speed, it's the Columbus City Schools School Lunch Heroes.
I am the superhero of Cedarwood. I do it all. I take care of all these kids' breakfast, lunch, washing these tables. I'm doing my job. I really do.
With the power to make students smile.
I love everything about serving lunch to the children. I'm probably like the second point of contact for them. So, you know, making sure that I bring a smile to their face every day, that's kind of like, I guess, my superpower.
All right, Andrew, talk to me.
Checking Zoom, checking Zoom, talking, talking, talking. How's everyone doing? Talking, talking, check, 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 Zoom check, talking on Zoom. Zoom check, 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 talking on Zoom. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm running out of breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. Check, check. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Saved by the Columbus City Schools Lunch Heroes.
So you start off in Nashville, you come to Columbus, you've been playing Afrocentric. So just tell me in general, Coach, how's it been the last 2 years? How's Afrocentric volleyball? How's the team going? And your vision, you know what I mean? Where are we at?
Honestly, we've been rebuilding, but for us to be a new team, because so the year before, we had maybe 4 seniors. And then we also had Coach Taylor as the head coach. When Coach Taylor left, a lot of our players left as well. And a lot of them left to, focus on basketball or whatever. So when I became the head coach, I literally started with 4 players that played before.
Okay.
4 players. And it was some team from the year before, but it wasn't many of them. So it was a rebuilding moment for us. But then this year, we lost a lot of players as well. So now I'm down to 3 players who have played Afrocentric varsity volleyball before.
Okay.
So I had a lot of, freshmen playing varsity, kind of playing around with our lineup a lot, especially during the beginning of the season. But we found a way to overcome our battles this season for sure.
Okay.
Our ending record was 14-5.
Okay.
5, yes. So.
No, she's doing the math on us over here.
Yeah, but that's not. So it's non-conference as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So 5. Yeah, I think honestly, we're a pretty solid team, especially with the 3 people that we have returning.
Yeah.
Having as much knowledge as they do, within the sport.
Yeah.
We've grown a lot. We are losing Sam, unfortunately, because she is graduating, but we do already have somebody stepping in to take the place of her.
Okay.
So
Next person up.
Next person up.
Yeah. So Sam, what's the advice you have for the next wave of young people coming in? I mean, volleyball is your focused sport. So what's the advice you have?
Just don't be too hard on yourself. Stay focused. That's really it. And you gotta stay out your head with volleyball.
Okay.
That's really it.
What does stay focused look like? What does that mean when you say stay focused?
Stay on top of your work,
Oh, okay.
Don't worry about nothing else when you get in the gym. That's it.
So now what's next for you? Because summer of 25 would be here before you know it. You snap your finger and turn around once or twice, it'll be the summer of 25. So what's your next plans? What do you hope to be doing here? So if I was to talk to you a year from now, right, Halloween next year of 25, you're where?
I want to go to Arizona State for psychology.
Oh, wow. Do you know anybody? Did you all have family in Arizona? Do you know you do? You're saying yes. So you do know somebody in Arizona?
I guess so.
You guess so? Well, why Arizona State, I guess, is the better question. Like what made you choose such a far away place?
Because I travel a lot, and when I go to Arizona, it's the only place that I feel like I should be there. Either that or New York, but I think I want to go to Arizona
Well, those
State.
are polar opposites of direction. So when do you plan on making this decision? I mean, that's a pretty big decision to be making. Have you applied to Arizona State?
I tried to apply last year, but they told me wait till this year.
Wait till this year.
Yeah.
So you're gonna apply to Arizona State, and then that's where you hope to be going. And then what's in New York then? So that's a completely different plan. It sounds like.
I don't really know.
You don't know, but just pop up and show up in New York one day. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let me share with you for somebody who spent summers growing up in New York. I have a lot of family in the city. Plan that out, because New York is a monster of a place, right? And so if you just arrive there one day without any real plan in place, New York is a kind of city that'll eat you alive, right? So think that one through a little bit. Talk to your support team, and don't just hop on the train or the plane or something and just show up in New York one day. It's going to take a little bit more than that for you, okay? So Sam, you're going back to Tennessee. Hopefully that's the plan, right?
Yes.
And do you still plan on continuing to try to play volleyball? Is that, or do you want to hold on to volleyball?
I think once I graduate, I'll probably be letting volleyball go. I don't see myself going and playing in college. I just feel like once I go, I want to major in biology. So I think I'll just focus on my major. But it really depends, honestly. I mean, I have time. Not a lot, but I think I have enough time. I have enough time to figure out whether I decide to play. If I do decide to play, I don't see myself going to Tennessee.
Okay.
I'll probably go somewhere else.
Okay.
So it just depends how everything unfolds.
But you plan on playing your senior year in high school though, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So you plan on playing, and you're a multi-sport athlete. Mm-hmm. Is that right? What else do you do?
I run track, and that's it. I run track.
Okay. What's your events in track?
All the sprinting events. I do the 1, 2, 4x1, 4x2, and I don't really touch the 4x4 or the 4 anymore. That was kind of freshman year stuff. I don't really.
The 400 is, I've said on this show many times, listeners know this, the 400 is a monster of a race. I mean, if you've never been asked to sprint one time around the track, I just say this for any person, just go out there one day in your life and try to sprint one time around the track and see what your time is. And then you'll have a very different respect for people who are running 40s in the 400. You go, wow, somebody done ran a 40 some odd seconds in the 400.
This is our third year for Say My Name event, and what is powerful is that we have over 300 girls come from 18 different schools, grades 4 through 12, to empower them and to show them that they have a voice and that they could be their authentic selves in any space. It's very important that we have high school students here intermingling with middle school students and elementary students so that they have a goal and they see where they can be and they get excited about graduating.
People to look up to, like student athletes and stuff, and they have a good future for themselves. And that's something I want to have, a good future.
To me, this event is a good way for young girls and older girls like me to come together and see what we all can do as a whole group and team.
What we want to do is break stereotypes for young girls and make sure that, you know, being loud and being joyful isn't seen as a negative, but a positive of expression through art, through painting, through dance, through song, through hair care classes, so that they have great self-confidence, great self-esteem, and they have a great self-direction in life.
It is an opportunity for us to celebrate our young girls, to acknowledge them, to amplify their voices, to hear them. We want them to know that we appreciate them, we love them, we see them, and we are here to support them.
And once we all come together at this event, it's all of the girls in Region 2 to see each other, to have common conversation, to understand, you know what, I do have a voice. I am worthy, I am valued. The beauty of being at the art museum is to see the art that takes place.
I enjoyed the painting, like I really enjoyed the painting, like the self-portraits. I enjoyed that they gave us free stuff, you know, lip gloss and gifts and stuff when we came, that the energy was good and that they welcomed us.
It's good because you get to talk to new people and share like what you have in common. I mean, it was pretty fun outside. We learned karate and it was a pretty awesome day.
What an awesome opportunity for our elementary girls to see that middle school and high school girls are able to share and have conversations with them.
I like that I could be an example towards them because, you know, they're still growing up. Well, I'm still growing up too, but, you know, they look up to us and, like, we're role models for them.
I think it's good to know, for some young ladies, to know that you're not alone and that it's not always about, like, the bad things and that we can all come together and make something positive all together. We can help each other and not make it envious or a competition, and that we're all here and we're on the same boat.
I think today, with battling so many negative connotations on social media and how people use social media, this gives them an opportunity to post positive things and to say, I belong, I matter, I'm loved, I'm nurtured. And so it's that counter narrative to some of the things that cause anxiety and depression.
You are unique, you are beautiful, you are brave, and we got you. We are here with you. We stand alongside you, and you can accomplish anything that your heart desires.
I chose to work in the district because I grew up in Columbus City Schools. I loved my teachers. I had very compassionate, very caring, very nurturing teachers, and I had a wonderful experience. So therefore, I wanted to give back to the community because I emulate just like the teachers did for me.
I've had an amazing experience as a professional in Columbus City Schools. I had a previous work experience in the business sector, and I also worked for another school district. And I can honestly say that the most professional growth that I've ever gained in my career has been through this district. From my literacy expertise that I was able to accomplish in my time here, that occurred in Columbus City Schools. From the leadership experience and promotion and increasing my knowledge just around leading a team of people, again, occurred in Columbus City Schools.
I've always believed in giving back. I come from a family of teachers on my mom's side and military personnel on my dad's side, so we've always believed in giving back, and Columbus City Schools seemed like the perfect opportunity to give back and kind of help shape the future of the whole city I've been living in. And the city has provided so much for me, so I wanted to provide something back to the city. The most rewarding experience has been able to give our students one-to-one device. Each student in Columbus City Schools has a device today. The pandemic affected us all in different ways. We're still somewhat paying for it, social emotional issues for us personally, as well as our families and the families we serve. But the most rewarding experience I would say that has come out of it is our ability to provide for our students. We were never a one-to-one district. It was part of my dream for 3 to 5 years. We made it happen in 3 months. The leadership intern at Linden McKinley wrote to me and said, hey, this was like Christmas for some of our students. They've never unwrapped a new present. And that, when we teared up at the same time, I was like, wow, we are able to make that impact. The team worked very hard to make that impact. And I was like, that is what I want to tell.
I feel we impact the students' success because we work with parents and families and students to ensure that any problem, any mediation that we can do to work with the building principal and district leaders to resolve their concerns.
I moved here from India 24 years ago, and I've made it home. I've had 2 children here, raised them here. So many startups. The ecosystem is so rich for technology that I've never had to look for a job, So it is so rich with technology, and it's important for me being in a city like that. And I feel right now in my role, it's especially important for our students because they have tremendous amount of opportunity to go make their careers in technology in the city right now.
For someone considering a career in Columbus City Schools, I would say go for it. This is the best place, and I can honestly say that from the bottom of my heart, to work. Columbus City Schools is a family. You're not going to get a better support system. You're not going to get a better district that's going to encourage your development and really actually provide you the tools to increase your knowledge, to increase your leadership, and to increase your impact.
We are the largest district in the state, so therefore we have more opportunities for educators, and we have a lot more support and a lot more chances for someone, if they want to move up or change careers inside the district, they can.
so excited to welcome our students back to the first day of school for the new school year this year, where our theme is Dream Big and Achieve More. We want our students and families to know that our entire staff is ready to welcome our students back and primed and positioned to help them achieve their goals this year.
The first day is the absolute best. It's what we have worked so hard for all summer. We have been preparing and just anxious for the students to come back. We're ready for them to get going and get closer to meeting their goals and being successful here. So we as a staff are very excited on the first day.
I want to thank everyone for coming to the 2024-25 school year. Welcome to the newly updated Scoutwood. I'm so excited to share all of our updates with you guys, and I can't thank everybody who worked so hard to get it done. We had 90 days over the summer to get this done, and they did an amazing job.
Hi, I'm Ansley Stevenson, Capital Improvements Project Manager, and we're back at Mifflin High School. Teachers have returned today, and we're here amidst the hustle and bustle of teachers unpacking and setting up their rooms. We wanted to take you on a guided tour one last time to see the finished product, so come along. We're here in the new Student Support Services area of Mifflin High School. Before, these spaces were scattered throughout the building, and now students and counselors have a private space to access all of those student support services. We're sitting here in one of our 3 new extended learning areas at Mifflin High School. They're all furnished slightly differently to allow a different posture for students and staffs. Some of them are more focused around technology, some of them are more focused around lounge and conversation to allow students and teachers to pick the space that suits their needs for the day. We're standing in one of our completely refreshed classrooms here at Mifflin High School. Throughout, you'll see new flooring, new ceilings, new lighting, our new sound system that allows for an even sound distribution throughout the whole classroom, and furniture that was customized for each teacher to suit their needs. Looking at the refreshed auditorium space, you'll see new seating, new theater curtains, new lighting and sound system to support our next big production here at Mifflin High School. Here in the relocated weight room at Mifflin High School, we have combined the weight room and the health classroom. So you'll see state-of-the-art, new weight equipment combined with flexible furnishings to allow us to use this space for after-school events, as well as after-school weight and strength training. Moving into the art and construction technology spaces, which were both refreshed here, you can see in the art room, we've got completely new seating for 72 students, which supports both of our art classes. We've added a lot of built-in cabinets to support all of those art materials needed to do all of the different studio functions for our high school art students. Looking at our construction technology space, you'll see a brand new dust collection around the perimeter. This will allow us to keep a safe, clean environment to teach our students the critical skills to become part of our modern construction technology world. At this project, we left no stone unturned. As you walk through the building, you will see upgrades throughout. Our hallways have been completely painted, upgrading with new ceilings and new lighting. Our cafeteria space has been refreshed, all new furniture, all new flooring, and all new lighting. Our brand new gymnasium space has been equipped with everything we need for the next big game. We have new bleachers, new basketball hoops, and a completely refinished gymnasium floor. When you walked through Mifflin High School last school year, it was a dark, outdated, uninspiring space for our young learners. When you walk through this year, you'll see a bright, refreshed space that allows our students to dream big and achieve more this school year and many school years to come.
I hope that the students feel a sense of accomplishment. I hope they feel proud about what they created. I hope they feel like they, really can do anything.
I want to dance for the rest of my life because I've been doing it up until now, so I still want to do it forever.
You taught me this in Dance 1, that dance is like a universal language.
And over time, I've really realized that my role here has become not necessarily teaching them about the art form of dance, but using dance as a way to understand yourself in the world. And when you understand yourself, then you are able to do more.
So I can say personally, the connection you have with your students and that you want them to do better. You want them to push. You don't want them to fall under any category. You want them to push forward, and her sense of being a community, I'm about to cry. You can really see that, you want to be a community and you push for that. You push for your students so they can have a community. I told you dance ensemble is family. So you push for that. You push for the family. You push for us being together, even though times may be hard, the being there, present in time and space, was really something that I appreciate.
Life is gonna go back to normal, and what you gonna do when you look back from 4 years in high school and you didn't still push yourself?
Enjoy the moments, enjoy what you have, be here, be grateful for what you have, because we couldn't have done this, we didn't have to do this, or we were probably wouldn't be able to do this.
COVID kind of makes you do things you don't want to do, or forces you outside of your comfort zone a little bit.
Be open, be different. It's okay to not just think everything's gonna be one way. It's okay to change.
I grow every day, so it's not like I'm just stuck in one position. I've learned a lot about myself through this whole experience.
It takes confidence to be a leader, to be able to step out in front of people and say, this is the way that this should be done. Because you have to be able to take criticism from people that doing that as well, because everyone's looking to you.
If you ask for things, if you are open and you're willing to put yourself out there just a little bit, that things will come to you.
Challenges do not change who you are. They reveal who you are. And what this has revealed is that during this time of great challenge, creativity still happens. Creativity still emerges. And that has been a very cool thing. So this challenge has not changed who we are, it's just revealed who we are.
Hi, I'm Alex Trevino, Director of Capital Improvements, and we're here at Woodward Park Middle School today to highlight the HVAC improvements we're making at this facility and across the district this summer. So this summer's work is focused on our middle school and high school auditoriums and gymnasiums. Here at Woodward Park, there's brand new air conditioning going into the gymnasium, and then we are replacing the unit that was already in the auditorium because it was quite old. And so while we were able to improve air conditioning in our traditional classrooms before, we had not been able to make those improvements at the gyms and the auditoriums. And so recognizing that they are very much classrooms as well, and part of our Students' Day, we're really pleased to be able to make those improvements as well this summer. So the auditoriums and the gymnasiums didn't get the improvements before, mostly out of budget concerns. So we were really focused on our traditional classrooms and getting air conditioning upgrades there. So we are really proud that we're 1 full year ahead of the commitment to get those spaces air conditioned, and at the end of this summer, we'll have every classroom, including our gymnasiums and our auditoriums, air conditioned for the very first time. So one of the improvements we've been able to make as a result of our HVAC investments is to add what we call DDC, or direct digital control, over every single unit controlling every single space. So every single classroom, and in fact every common space, is going to have a thermostat. That's an improvement that we've made across the system, and so it helps not only regulate the temperature in each space, it also allows our central maintenance team to see problems as they're happening.
The record last year was 3-10 because we only have 5 players, and the record this year is 7-9.
We was gonna make a team at Lynn McKinley if we had a coach or if we didn't, and we're having people come to our games to come watch us play.
Share the ball a little bit more now, and I actually see the team as like a sisterhood.
To go into an actual program that does have those type of losses, you feel like there's no expectation. And I seen from previous games that I had looked at that they actually were talented.
Horaciana, she loves to get buckets. Shy, she's strong with the ball. She'll body anybody. Faith, she brings the energy if we feeling down.
Denny is doing real good. I love Denny. I got to play with my sister this year. She's a freshman.
Marion Franklin, Christiana Towns, she had 35 points, 25 rebounds, and 10 steals. She averages 18.5 points per game, 9 rebounds, 6 steals per game. Her Mifflin game that we had, Tamaya Harrington, she had 27 points, 5 rebounds, 13 steals.
It makes me feel more confident. Start varsity as a freshman and play the whole game and make a lot of points with my teammates and a lot of assists.
Changing the culture means a lot to me. It makes me feel real good that people aren't just seeing Linden girls as trash. We here Monday through Saturday, so we really putting in the work, and I'm happy people are actually coming out and seeing us. We aren't just a team that's 3-10. We're an actual high school basketball team.
Once I actually did see Darthard and the program that he was actually running, and how he was uplifting and actually caring. Once they actually started to win games and to see their progress and to understand how much I did really care about them outside of just the game itself, it made them want to show up. It made them care. It made them want to actually work together and have a sisterhood to where they loved each other.
My brothers are Philip, LB, Chris, and Emmanuel. When I watch my brothers play, I look up to them and I play against them a lot. So it makes me a little tougher to play against girls.
The town's name is very strong in the community, and she's living up to her name.
My goal for Lynn McKinley is to win more games and set an example for little kids.
Being a senior is pretty bittersweet that the program is just getting together, and I'm about to leave, but I'm happy it got together. Coach means a lot to me. She is actually my NOAC advisor, so I be in her office a lot.
Miss Crenshaw, she makes sure I make it to individual workouts, things I need help with to be better.
She set up some team bonding for us. We do a lot of stuff on and off the court. I do enjoy playing against East since they are our rivals.
I have fun playing against Kennedy from Centennial, Kayla from Centennial, Layla from International.
For college, I would like to study stenography. College coaches should recruit me because I feel like I'm a good leader, I'm a good listener, and I have good discipline, and I can push myself.
She's always going to put 110% into whatever it is that she does. So a lot of the times whenever coaches are looking for that one player, that spark, Tamaya Harrington would be that person. I cannot wait to see the young woman that she's going to become.
I just want to do photography and still do basketball. College coaches should recruit me because I put all the work in. I'm very humble. I could make buckets, and I like to share the ball and communicate.
College coaches should recruit Christiana Towns because of her work ethic, the ability that she has, which is natural, and on top of that, she's very coachable. It's something different whenever you have someone to step on the court that has an athletic ability, that has a game that is different than a lot of players that do play the game, and you can still teach them something.
My name is William Stinchcombe, and I've been with Columbus City Schools for 23 years.
My name is Mr. Dorsey Birdsong. I'm a safety and security specialist.
My name is Anita Roman, and I am a Columbus City Schools bus driver.
My name is Samuel Gonzalez. I'm a food service manager currently at Briggs High School.
I know that if I'm not there every day and on time, that student may not have a ride to school. And that weighs on me heavily. And I take pride in knowing that my students can set their clock on me. I'm always, it takes a lot for me not to come to work. It's important to come to work every day, be on time, because we may be the only way that student gets to school.
Seeing the kids years later and having them come up to me and say how thankful and grateful they were and happy that, I kept them safe in the district and, that I can't retire or leave the district until their kids graduate.
This was one of the best decisions I've made in my life. I didn't expect to live for this, but I love being part of the Columbus City School as a family. I just think because the building represents our districts, for me to see how clean the building is, I could take pride in my effort, and to put the cleaning and the organizing of the building, it just makes me feel a level of pride.
Peaceful mind can accomplish a lot of things. And when a student is hungry, their mind is oftentimes on what the next meal is going to be. In an indirect way, we affect the students in the kitchen. They can accomplish what they have to in the classroom. And for them to accomplish that, oftentimes that's going to better their situation for themselves, their family, and their community. So in a sense, helping the student in an indirect manner with the food is something that I really enjoy.
Columbus, Ohio has so much to offer our youth. The growth you can obtain from being a part of this district is huge. There is such diversity and learning experience happening throughout our K-12 buildings.
I love to see the excitement in the kids' faces when they know they can start school the very next day. So it's exciting for the families. So I think it's very impactful because it gives them that first start to, learning and growing.
I've been working with kids all my life. Coming here, meeting the students, the relationships that I've built over the years is just phenomenal. I'm seeing students, still see students to this day that thank me. Just, thanks for everything you've done. Thanks for helping provide a safe learning environment. Thank you for the talks, and they're really appreciative.
The district provides training throughout the school year and a lot of information that's constantly updated, and it's always available to us. So that's very helpful in being able to, provide the best service to, our students and parents. The diversity in Columbus and inclusion, it's unlike any other place, really. There's so many different cultures and you come in contact with just on a daily basis, with our students and parents and teachers.
I've really enjoyed the last few years working here at CCS.
Good evening and welcome to the June 10th Community Engagement and Advocacy Committee. Please call the roll.
Ms. Vera?
Present.
Ms. Barnes? Present. Ms. Britt?
Present.
Mr. Jenkins?
Present.
Ms. McLeod?
Present.
Ms. Snyder?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you.
Back that up.
Don't get me started. All right. Well, good evening, colleagues. Super excited to be back with you this evening. Tonight we have a lot of great presentation, conversation, next steps to discuss. So I will go over our agenda. We will approve the minutes of our May 13th meeting. We'll be getting an update from Director Hess around government affairs. We also want to welcome our superintendent tonight, Dr. Angela Chapman, and team, who will be talking to us about the Columbus City Schools realignment update. So we'll have some robust conversation around our facilities, future use, and how this committee will help move that work forward. In addition to our back to school fair, which is crazy. We just ended school, but we're going to be talking about going back to school. And then certainly just some next steps for the committee to consider. So is there a motion to approve the agenda? Nobody wants to adopt it?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Perfect. Please call the roll.
Ms. Vera?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Ms. Britt?
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Ms. McLeod?
Yes.
Ms. Snyder?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Awesome. All right. Well, as I mentioned, tonight we are going to be hearing directly from a lot of the district leadership around very key areas. And so we'll go ahead and start off with our government affairs, and then we also have two guests with us for public comment, which we'll be able to fold in here shortly. So at this time, I will hand it over to Director Hess.
Great, thank you, Chair Vera. Oh, I'm going back to last year. Thank you for having me at the committee. I think the last time that I was with you all, the budget bill had maybe just moved through the House and we were entering the Senate. And so we are nearing having a Senate budget proposal finalized. The omnibus amendment, which is the really long amendment to the bill, was adopted by the Finance Committee today. So we should expect the full Senate to vote on this bill either tomorrow or the next day, so this week. What we see in the Senate budget proposal is another take on school funding. So we now have kind of 3 doors to walk through for how we would fund public schools in our state. And the Senate has proposed fully phasing in the Fair School Funding Plan, so we support that. However, they're proposing doing that at the FY21 levels when the Fair School Funding Plan was first adopted. So it's a full phase-in of FY21. So that doesn't really get us to where we want to be ideally. We are all aware that the cost of education in 2025 is more than it was in 2021. Inflation has really impacted the costs of doing business, any type of business, but certainly in education as well. So we know that our costs are rising, but we are grateful for that fully phased-in Fair School Funding Plan. That's important. It allows us to forecast for the future, to understand how funding works in education. It doesn't take us back to the days of what our treasurer would refer to as residual budgeting, where it's just every 2 years we're given a number, it is what it is. So a formula is really helpful because we know how that formula is calculated, we know how the inputs work, and we can advocate and forecast easier. So at this point, I would say of the 3 options, we're likely most supportive of the Senate's proposal. The proposal will be taken to a conference committee, assuming that the House does not just agree with what the Senate has proposed, and that will be made up of members of the House and members of the Senate. They'll come together for a week or so. They'll debate every difference in the budget, and they will come out with a singular budget proposal to send to the governor. We are on track time-wise this year, which is really exciting for any of us who are planning vacations in July, that it does look like there should be a final budget sent to the governor on time for a June 30 signing. The other piece that I do want to mention in the Senate's proposal is that the Senate did agree with the governor on some of the changes to how we dispose of our properties that aren't fully enrolled. And so the governor's proposal was that if a building had less than 60% of its enrollment, that building should not stay in the district, but instead be sold to charter schools and charter non-public schools, which are private schools. The Senate, the House disagreed with that. The House removed it entirely. And they did not agree with that proposal. The Senate did bring it back, but was really listening to districts, and they put in a list of exemptions. So they are proposing to exempt buildings that are less than 10 years old. So for example, we've built a brand new high school and it can hold 2,000 students, but right now it's not at that number because we have to grow the enrollment there, right? They would respect that. It would exempt buildings that are on the property of other school facilities. It exempts buildings that are used for career tech programming. That was something really important to CCS, that you may, look at downtown high school and say it can fit 1,000 students, but once we put the advanced manufacturing lab in there and the cosmetology lab and the culinary lab, now we're down to 400. And so that they understood that. And then they also put in an exemption for extraordinary circumstances, where the district could ask the Director of Education and Workforce to exempt the building from the provision because of extraordinary circumstances not contemplated by the legislature. So the provision has become better, but we would still argue that this is an infringement on local control and our taxpayers' ability to control the use of the buildings that they have paid for. So we're still against this provision, and we'll be fighting in the conference committee to have it removed permanently from this bill. So those are the big updates to the budget bill. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have or thoughts that you may have in this space. And I do just want to thank the superintendent and treasurer and our chief operating officer, because they gave really phenomenal testimony in the Senate, and it truly did have an extraordinary impact on the bill that we're seeing today.
So my question is, did we lose the ability to determine what we do with the buildings that we choose to close? Is that what I'm hearing?
Kind of. So there is already a provision in current law, and this is what the House was saying. We don't need to change this. The current law is fine from their perspective, that when buildings aren't being used, that and we're seeking to sell the building, to no longer use it for an educational purpose, that we would need to offer that building to right now just community schools, so charter schools. The change in this provision changed the definition of what's an unused school, cast it a wider net, and also change the amount of the value of what that school building would be. So under current law, any charter school who'd be purchasing that building would pay the value of that building. Under this provision, it would be lowered to its educational value, like as a school building, as opposed to it could be on a really nice piece of property that a developer would pay a lot of more money for that.
Well, the question I sometimes get from the people that I work with in the community is, I voted for the levy for Columbus City Schools. So if indeed this happens and it becomes like a charter school, is the levy money still going or still staying with CCS, or does it travel along to that charter school?
Sure. So there's different types of levies, right, that we pass. So any operating levies, permanent improvement levies, right, those are always to the district, and that it's the only beneficiary of those levies. There are questions being raised, and I think part of the reason why the House didn't want this provision in the bill is that there's questions being raised about buildings that still have bonds attached to them. So even though a building may be older than 10 years old, a bond lasts longer than that. And so there are tax questions, IRS type questions, right, being asked about whether you can sell a building that still has debt attached to it.
So, and that was a great question, because that would apply to buildings that we have gone to the voters to request funds through a bond for FMP to build newer buildings. And we've invested in them. The community said yes. It's been a while since we've built a new building, but if those buildings are underutilized and then we're now forced to sell them, to your point, we went to the community, asked for a bond to build a new building for the students of Columbus City Schools, and now are forced to sell them to another entity.
Any other questions for Director Hess? And I want to thank all of you. I know at the few months back, you also came to the committee and gave us kind of steps on how each member could contribute. I know there's been some small group conversation with the treasurer. And so just want to also thank the committee for any support, insight that they have also provided during this time. So if you have more questions or you want to get more involved or just any updates, Director Hess is available to each of you, just as she is to us here on the board. So feel free to connect with her.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, colleagues, so we will move on to item 3.2, Columbus City Schools realignment update. Really excited to be able to dive deeper into this work. Dr. Chapman is here tonight along with Alex Trevino and Dr. Brown, the team, and they're here to provide us with an overview, which a lot of this information we have already shared. We've had multiple conversations around the realignment process at the board table as well, specifically around what facilities the board has already provided approval on closure, demolition. So I know a lot of that information has been sent in advance. But tonight is really just to have an overview conversation of the district's facility footprint, including any context or anything you might have around the closures and consolidations. And really the idea is the next steps in the long-term planning. So following that, we will hear from our experts here to discuss that, and then the committee will take on a specific charge in terms of the next steps in contributing to a community-facing engagement strategy. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But tonight, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Dr. Chapman.
Thank you, Chair Vera, and thank you to the committee for engaging in this work and following it through multiple conversations and work. At our last board meeting, we presented or provided an update to the board regarding our realignment work. And so tonight, we're going to take a different spin on that presentation through the lens of engagement. So we'll really, you can go back to that presentation to see the full presentation, but it's just a different perspective of looking at the opportunities for engagement with the broader community, and certainly will end with a call to action for the committee. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Brown, and Dr. Brown will also then pass it to Alex Trevino, so that we're tag teaming this presentation tonight, and we will certainly make time for questions and discussion.
Good evening, and thank you for the AV team for putting one of the PowerPoint slides up this way. I thought I was going to have to turn sideways there for a minute to be able to do this. Pleased to join you, Chair Vera, Superintendent Chapman, and members of the committee. As the superintendent mentioned, we're going to give just a high-level view of the footprint, talk about the immediate work around Broadley and Moeller and what we're going to do there. I'll then hand over to Mr. Trevino, who will go through the remaining portions of this, and who will then hand it back over to Dr. Chapman in the end. So in terms of a high-level footprint, we have 112 school buildings across the system. And you know, they incorporate about 8.3 million square feet of instructional spaces. It's a lot of square footage. That could accommodate over 60,000 students, and we're aware that our enrollment is around 47,000 students now. So that we have substantially more square footage than we need for the student body that we have, or that we would anticipate having in the near future. Our buildings are, for the most part, relatively old. On average, our buildings are approximately 50 years old. Our oldest building, on the other hand, was built in 1895. 1895. X-rays were discovered in 1895. The first diesel engine was invented in 1895. So a little bit has happened in terms of education, technology, et cetera, between now and then. To say the least, expecting facilities like that to support 21st century instruction is not reasonable. We have 46 buildings that, to the superintendent's point, that we've invested in as a community, that we have, as part of the FMP process, brought up to date and are more aligned to what we would expect for 21st century instruction. Unfortunately, that leaves 66 legacy buildings out there. And on average, they're about 68 years old, and 9 of them are over 80 years old. So we have a lot of work to do still in terms of this community to align our instructional spaces to 21st century instruction, and how we would like to have instruction that would support our portrait-ready attributes in our students. So, during the past year, I think you're all aware, there was a task force. The task force made recommendations. Some of those recommendations were acted upon by the board. The board determined that 5 buildings should be closed and or realigned. The first of those that we recommended to do something about were Broadley and Moeller elementary schools. And they would become part of phase 1 of the work. There was a phase 2 and phase 3 that involve moving Cause and moving Buckeye Middle School. And then finally, we talked about West Broad Elementary, which was dependent on funding. So we're anticipating that Broadley would close at the end of this coming academic school year, and that those students would be realigned to one of these 3 schools, either Eastgate, East Columbus, or Fairmore. We communicated that as part of the process with the task force work, and again, when we presented to the board, there has not been a change in terms of the buildings. All 3 of those buildings are modern environments. They're all FMP buildings. They've all been improved, and one of them in particular is likely to receive the majority of those students. It's Eastgate Elementary, and Eastgate Elementary is one of the buildings which we would have to forfeit if we had not done this consolidation, because it was under 60%.
Can you put it right in front of you? I don't think I could hear properly.
Okay.
Yeah, this might be just me. This might be a big thing. But if you can maybe put it in the center, like this.
Well, I was trying to keep them, yeah, we'll get it over there. Better?
That would help so much more.
Better? Oh, okay. My wife constantly complains that I speak softly. Former therapist, it's hard for me to shift gears. Moeller, on the other hand, same timeline, 25-26 school year. The 2 buildings that we're looking at for that, and again, this was communicated as part of the task force and is carried forward, hasn't changed, Livingston and Lincoln Park. Again, both FMP buildings. Lincoln Park is underutilized, and this would, again, position us better and less likely to lose a building that the community has invested in by making better use of, again, those investments that the community has already made. Again, focusing on community engagement. One of the things that we talked about a lot during the task force process with the community, and I think there were like 16 community events where we were out talking with folks, we had surveys, et cetera, and while we were out there talking with them, we often talked about boundary processes and talked about involving the community with the boundary. Well, that has to happen in the early part of the fall. And so we're looking for help and folks to think about that and how we can lean into that as a committee and a community to really get engagement in that process. Because from my seat, and I've done this sort of work before, I think it's incredibly for the folks who are going to live with this decision to be involved in that decision-making process. So it's one thing to talk about globally as a system where we might need to realign, but when it gets down to brass tacks and who's going to go to what school based on a neighborhood, yeah, the neighborhood folks should be involved in that decision. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to bring in some help for that. We phoned a friend. Matthew Cropper, GIS, it's a corporation. It's actually a Columbus-located corporation. They've done this sort of boundary work all over the country and in many of our neighboring districts. So they did it for Akron, they've done it for Dublin, they've done a whole bunch of the neighboring districts around this area and all over the country. So he's got a bit of a blueprint for this type of work, and I've seen this work before. So I'm looking forward to how he can engage with us and engage with our community to support this work as we move forward. And I'm thankful for the board supporting this in our last board meeting because they actually approved the funding for this. And we're going to start that very soon with the database part of that work, lining up for that community engagement in the fall. We expect to compose representative groups for each of these boundary processes. These will be done separately. So we'll have one for Broadway with the Broadway neighborhood and neighboring schools, and we'll have one for Moeller, for the Moeller neighborhood and the neighboring schools for Moeller. And again, we'll run those parallel, and they'll need to happen between August and October, because by November, we need to be able to tell parents, hey, next year, this is where your student's going to go based on address. Mm-hmm. And it's incredibly important to get that information to them early.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And we need to have that done early to support all the stuff that happens inside this business to be able to get buses on time and line up all the stuff that needs to happen. So that all needs to happen before we go to Wellness Week. And that then lines parents up so that if they want to get involved in a lottery process, they know that before that lottery starts. It also lets the teachers know and the community know where things are going and where they're falling out as we move forward. I've worked with Cropper. I've seen him do this work. I expect a lot of community engagement in this process and in mixed formats. He'll definitely have online pieces. He'll have some interactive maps for folks so they can sort of see what the options are and how things change over time. But we'll also have public sessions, in-person sessions to support this work as well as we move forward. During the interim here, the board decided and made a decision about 5 buildings in December, and then they charged us to come back in June and say, hey, what's the plan? And how's that going to work? And so in that intermediary time, the team worked on a lot of different things tied to what it means to close a building, and what would the standard operating procedures be for all the different aspects of closing. And one of the pieces that we looked at was framing out a community engagement plan. And it had some goals to it. It was several pages long. It was a diverse team of folks across the organization that supported this work. We had people from engagement. We had folks from our whole child group there. We had people from communications. We had all teaching and learning that were involved in this process. And they had some goals that came out of this for engagement. One, we wanted to have consistent, clear engagement or communication throughout this entire process. I think it would be hard to over-communicate. I think what we heard time and time again from our parents, even when we went out this year, we had some focus groups to sort of, hey, what are the primary concerns in these 2 schools? Communication, communication, communication. And whatever you all can do to help us to lean into communication and reaching out as a network to make sure people are informed, please, because it's just, I think we can't communicate enough in this process to keep people involved as we move forward. We want to provide multiple opportunities for students and families to get to know their new schools. So once we get past that boundary, then we know where folk are going, and it's time to start bridging that gap. So what does it mean if I'm at Broadway and now I'm at Eastgate, or I'm going to be at Fairmore, or I'm going to be at East Columbus? What does that look like for me? What do those schools look like? And do I get a chance to meet the kids there? Do I get a chance to interact with the faculty in that building? Again, trying to set up multiple opportunities during the course of the year for folks to be able to do those things with them. Also, one of the things that became really important for us was to talk about, well, hey, if we're closing a building, buildings are important for a community. Mm-hmm. Lots of folks have had their children go there, sometimes multiple generations of the family. Mm-hmm. So what are we doing to memorialize the building? How are we going to honor that history? And that's built into the plan so that at the end of the year, when it's no longer going to be used for instruction, we have a process then to memorialize that and capture that for folks. And that even talks about bringing in the Historical Society as part of that work. And ultimately, all of the above is meant to build trust with families and their students and in this transition process so they understand what's going on, understand how it's going on, and can anticipate what's happening so they're not surprised. Again, that's why I'm saying, please, wherever you all can lean in to help us with that, to engage and help people be aware, thank you. I'll say it in advance. So this is a rough outline, again, of that community engagement plan. It's part of the plan that came to the board last week. It's a 3 or 4 page document. And it gives this month-by-month layout as we're going through. So again, the front end is all about boundaries. So between August and October, it's all about boundaries. And then after that, it's all about joining communities. It's all about bringing those communities together. So again, first thing in November, some small group opportunities for kids to interact. We get around to December, there's all these holiday program opportunities for people to join and come together and get to know each other. We get around to February, we talk about, again, some opportunities for kids to get together around lunch, do some lunch joining activities. And again, get into March, more family-oriented activities again to bring people together. And this continues April, May, June, where we memorialize, and then a back-to-school event where we try to support, the joining of schools as they come together. It's a lot. This is what we're talking about for the general population of each of these buildings. I would also like to let everybody know that we're specifically leaning into our ESL and special ed populations. We have moved some of those students already for the coming year. And one of the drivers behind this, as we move through this process, is to try to serve students in their home school or as near to their home school as possible. Right. Because if I'm a student and I'm receiving services, I shouldn't have to travel all over town to get those. Mm-hmm. And so we can improve student experience by getting them served closer to their home or in their home school whenever possible. We're already starting to make some of those shifts. Mm-hmm. A lot of that involves individual phone calls with parents. This is what's happening. It means coordinating movements of teachers with students so that wherever possible, we move the teacher with the kids. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of work to lean into that space. as we move forward. We will continue that work in the fall as well as we move forward. So this gives you a sort of broad outline of what we're doing with Broadway and Moeller and our intention for moving forward through this year. And at this point, I'm going to hand things over to Mr. Trevino. You're probably going to need this, right?
Please and thank you.
You've got that, man. You can see it from all the way.
Let's hope, right? Hopefully my eyes are that good. All right, so from here we're going to move in. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
We'll move into demolitions. I won't kind of belabor the actual demolition. We're going to kind of focus on the sites, but I can certainly answer any questions you might have about the specifics. So I won't belabor this slide. You saw a lot of this from Dr. Brown's presentation already, but I will focus your attention on that right side column. So these are the sites, and you'll notice that we've broken them into two categories. So there's vacant and unused at the top, vacant structures on active sites at the lower section. And so every place you see an asterisk, there is a demolition that the board has already approved and are already underway. We'll get into some details when we get to those specific sites, but I do want to point out that Maderi is the outlier. So Maderi has a historic school facility still on it. It is vacant. And then the Pinecrest site is a little bit of an anomaly in that it's been vacant. I think the building there was demolished maybe 10 to 15 years ago, so that site's been vacant and just a grass field essentially for quite some time. So we kind of just wanted to lead with some of the things that I think we should be thinking about, or you may want to consider as we think about potential disposition for properties. And of course, we kind of need to frame that there are also ORC stipulations about how properties are disposed of. And yet these are some of the things that I think are going to be important considerations in terms of potential future uses for those sites. There's certainly also the same kinds of considerations we're thinking about as we're considering developing new facilities. What are all those services that a community might have particular needs for? How and where are their partners or potential partners that might be able to step in and provide some of those services? So again, we'll start with the inactive sites. And so when we say inactive, there is no activity district-related occurring on these sites at this time. So the first one is the Monroe Middle School site. You can kind of see the adjacency to the 670 interchange immediately to the west. This is a 9.1 acre site, and just a couple things I'll also point out. So if you look to the far right of the screen where you see that big white roof, that is our Trevitt Beatty Park School, which is part of the facility master plan. And then just off the screen to the west is our Fort Hays campus. So we have other real estate and facilities very, very nearby. And it's a little hard to see here unless you look at and see the shadow, but so we're literally in the shadow of the former Sawyer Towers, which I understand are also vacant at this time. Yeah. The next site is our Beaumont Elementary School. Many people don't even remember this name because this school closed as Beaumont many, many years ago, but it did function as our Columbus Spanish Immersion Academy until we rebuilt that facility over on Carl Road. Again, it's about 5.4 acres. It's kind of bounded by Morse Road to the north, Cleveland Avenue to the east. It's very much in it's a very residential neighborhood. The next site is the one I mentioned previously, which is Maderi Elementary, and you can see it's just south of Hudson Street and just a little bit west of Indianola Avenue. Again, there is an existing structure here, and this one is not slated for any kind of demolition action. The existing facility is about just shy of 42,000 square feet. It's 3 stories. It's a very, very tight site at 2.4 acres. It's a very residential site with a little bit of a commercial corridor along Indianola, if you're familiar with that section of town. Very near to campus, OSU campus. Probably goes without saying. Pinecrest is a site that I referenced before. So again, this one has not been active as a school site of any sense as long as I've been at the district, which is 20 years. It's a decent sized site at 7.6 acres, but again, it's a very, very residential neighborhood. We're completely bounded by homes on the east, west, and to the south of this site. And then that moves us into the active sites. And this one is particularly strange because of how it shows up on the auditor's website. So I do want to dispel a few rumors on this particular one. So the address you see there is the address for the former Wedgwood Middle School building, which is where that yellow arrow points. So this is the building that is already slated for demolition. To the south, where you see the building that kind of runs north and south, that is the new Wedgwood Middle School that was built as part of Facility Master Plan. The building with the black roof immediately to the north is our Eakin Elementary School. But what you see there is 19.2 acres is the totality of everything you see there in red. I'm not quite sure how the Franklin County Auditor allows a street to bisect one site, but in this case it does. And I just want to point that out because I know it's been misreported in the media multiple times. So, yeah, as one site, it's a little strange how it shows up on the auditor's website, but in totality, it's 19.2 acres. The next site is Deschler Elementary School. And again, you see it's kind of a very irregular shape here because it's very much buried in a residential neighborhood, but everything you see there in red is district-owned property. The building is slated for demolition, but you can very clearly see the outlines there of a baseball and a softball field. And those were developed to support South High School when it was renovated back in 2009 because we're fairly site constrained at South High School, and so there is not room on campus for those amenities. And so this was the nearest location where we could fit those amenities at regulation size. So when this demolition is complete, though, there will be a small parking lot to support transporting students and to allow this to continue to function as their baseball, softball site. And we don't see that changing. And so that's why we refer to this as the first of the active sites. So you can see there is certainly potential there to do something with the portion of the site where that school facility sits right now, but we would envision this remaining in district ownership, at least in terms of that baseball and softball function for the foreseeable future. The next site is our Linmore Education Center. A couple strange things happening here that I will point out. So my apologies, but my blue arrow did not show up in quite the right place when we reformatted this. But if you look just to the east of that blue arrow, there is a small building there we refer to as the Linmore Annex. It is currently being leased by the Columbus Metropolitan Libraries, but it is completely separate from the main building that is slated to be demolished. And then where you see the yellow arrow, that is our Hamilton STEM Elementary School. And that's a facility we just renovated 2 years ago. So kind of similar. So you can kind of see the potential with the amount of acreage that will be vacant after we demolish the property. The other thing I will point out here is that kind of under the yellow arrow, similar to south, there is a baseball and softball field that support Linda McKinley STEM. Because again, at their main campus, there is not room for those amenities. And so you can certainly see there is a lot of space here and there's certainly some potential, but because it does have other active CCS uses on, we would see it staying under board control for the foreseeable future. But you see, it's almost 22 acres in totality. It's a large site. The next site is the Franklin Annex. And again, this is one that many people have never even heard of. I don't really know the full story behind this one, but where you see the yellow arrow, that is our current Columbus City Preparatory School for Girls. Active site will remain that way for the foreseeable future. The annex is that portion up at the top right corner, so it would be the northeast corner of the site. Again, I don't really understand the history of that building. It's been vacant as long as I've been with the district, but it is going to be demolished here shortly. You see there is some potential again on this site, but it is an active CCS site, and I would expect it stays under board control for the foreseeable future. Oh, that's weird. So the next site is Beery Middle School. And again, this is a site we refer to as active because while the yellow arrow points to the Beery Middle School site, which is vacant with the exception of the Metropolitan Libraries, which are in it right now under a temporary lease. Although if you're familiar with that neighborhood, they're actively building their own branch library just south of us. And when that site is operational, they will vacate this site and we will be completely vacant. And at that time, we'll demolish the building. But up at the top right corner, so the northeast corner, is our active Marion Franklin High School site. And so when we contemplate a new Southside High School, which we did in our most recent facility master plan, this is most likely the site we would target for that redevelopment. So again, we don't see it leaving board control, but there's certainly some potential here, at least long term. And so from there, we will move into the next section, which is also mine, which is the Integrated Facility Master Plan. And I think these two things really dovetail together nicely. So I do want to start with just a little bit of a history of the district's facility master plan. I think some of these things are very relevant just in terms of understanding how and why we are in the position that we're in today. So I always like to remind folks that well before I arrived here at the district, so between 1977 and 2001, there was no new construction in our district. And so you see this enormous gap where there is no new construction. And in our world, we'd love to see our school facilities never exceed 50 years of age. That's kind of the useful life of a school facility. And yet we went almost that period of time with no active construction. And so we have this huge gap of time between the 1970s and then our FMP buildings that we really kind of have a lot of catch up to do in terms of getting our cycle and our age of our facilities kind of back into a cycle we can sustain. And then in 1997, the Ohio School Facilities Commission, or the OSFC, was established. It is now the OFCC, the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, which I know causes a lot of confusion for some folks, but regardless, it's the state's program that helps support both through standards as well as funding school construction across the entire state. And then in 2000, the district passed its original facility master plan that kind of kicked off the trajectory we're on today. In 2002, that first bond issue was passed that let that work start. In 2004, that first new facility master plan facility, which is the Linden STEM building up on Cleveland Avenue, opened. And then in 2008, segment 3 was approved, which launched I think the last 13 buildings, which get us to that total of 46 facilities that have been redeveloped since 2002. That original master plan contemplated 7 segments. So the district opted, rather than going after one stream of funding to be able to see that entire work all the way through, took a segmented approach. And we've never made it past segment 3 at this point. So there's quite a bit of work still to do. Again, another very relevant point. So the current model of state funding would have our local taxpayers footing 70% of the bill, while the state will kick in 30% matching funds for any local funds raised. And then you see there in 2002, the bond issue total was $392 million that funded segments 1 and 2. And then in 2008, we had essentially a partially funded segment of another $123 million, which funded what we call segment 3. Now, I know I fully recognize you are not going to be able to read this graph on the right-hand side, but I like to show it because it really kind of helps represent how fluid these plans can be. So the graph represents the original 7 segments approved in 2000. And so if you just kind of look at the color and the shading on it, you can see that first red column is pretty solidly red. Like we implemented with pretty good fidelity what we originally planned. But what was happening during that time was some fairly rapid decline in enrollment. So where you see those gray boxes showing up across the chart, those were buildings that closed. And so you can see even in segment 1, there was 1 building that closed. And so sometimes there are the need to make some pretty rapid adjustments to these plans based on what's happening kind of in real time. So then when you look in segment 2, which is the blue column, you can start to see more color shading showing up. And what that's representing is as buildings were closing, we were also increasing the size of other buildings to accommodate some of those changes in enrollments that were happening. But then what I think is really interesting is what you see in that third column was our segment 3. And what is in green is what was actually executed in segment 3. And you see it looks nothing like the original proposal for segment 3. So again, I just use this to highlight how fluid these plans can and frankly need to be to make sure that we are accommodating what is happening here with the district in real time. So again, just to kind of cover all the highlights, segment 1 was implemented pretty accurately to how it was originally contemplated. We started to see those adjustments in segment 2 and for sure in segment 3, and that was largely a result of declining enrollment. And again, just the need to be constantly looking at these plans because in facility world, it's this tension between we're looking at a 50-year lifespan for a facility, and yet we don't have our students for more than 13 years. And so we've got this disconnect in how we look at planning for a student's time with us and how we look at a facility, and we really have to marry those two things together, excuse me, as closely as we can. So you saw the map earlier that showed all of the district's sites. These yellow stars represent the sites that we touched through facility master plan. And so again, I like to show this because what it does demonstrate is that so we followed a worst first, so we were largely tackling worst condition. But what you see is that we didn't do a ton of work up in the northeast and the northwest parts of the city. And so there is a lot of work there that still needs done. And then as we tackled our 2021, 2022 master plan revision, really focusing on the portrait of a graduate and thinking about outcomes. So rather than being so focused on the facilities, really thinking about, we like to say instruction should drive construction. So what are those programs? What are those attributes? What are the things that we need to be thinking about of a student's day in the life for CCS? And what is that, how does that translate into a facility? And then a couple relevant points in terms of, I mentioned earlier, that OFCC funding, which we know is so important in terms of being able to meet our objectives. So the state of Ohio has said they will not provide funding for a high school with less than 1,200 students, a middle school with less than 800 students, or an elementary school with less than 600 students. And so that's really going to force us into this consolidation, which in some ways is helpful too, though, in terms of bringing more programs, more services together to be able to support student outcomes. And then there's also the state rule around when they will recommend or require us to replace a facility versus renovate. And so that we call it the 2/3 rule. So at the point that the cost to renovate a facility exceeds 2/3 of its cost for new construction, the recommendation is to replace that facility. The only time we have ever sort of petitioned to do differently would be with our historic facilities. And there are a handful of those where we did make that case and we did renovate rather than replace. And again, I already covered, the state will cover 30% of our construction costs as long as we meet their requirements for that funding. And so as we think about shifting from facility master plan to the new integrated master plan model, a couple highlights I want to point out here as well. So we are actively in contract negotiations with the vendor that we selected through a qualifications-based process. I just put here some context. So in our 2021 contract, we were just shy of $800,000 in 16 months worth of work. I would expect that we are going to be somewhere north of this as we kind of tackle that integrated portion. So there will be additional scope that we did not contemplate before, but again, I just kind of wanted to give you some context of where we've been in the past. We would expect this work is going to entail some serious planning efforts, serious engagement. We also expect it to include educational visioning, and this is really kind of helping all of us, our staff, our leaders, our community understand what we think needs to happen inside of these facilities so that we are really using instruction to drive construction. We'll need to think about local funding. So what do we need to do locally to be able to fund these projects, and what will we ask the state to fund in terms of that 30% state match? So again, we're anticipating that this would be a 16 to 24 month engagement. And again, we've really got to be looking at those options for implementation and thinking about how to phase that work. And then I think we actually already covered this slide, so I don't know that I'll go into any more depth on this one. But certainly House Bill 96 is one thing we have to keep on top of mind.
Thank you, Alex. I'll take it from here. So you've heard a lot tonight, a lot of information. We certainly can entertain any questions that you have to process what you've heard. But tonight, we were coming to the Community Engagement and Advocacy Committee to really talk through what we could really use and leverage your support with when we think about all the work that will be happening in the fall. And so you heard the team talk a little bit about the realignment work for Broadley and Moeller. There will be lots of opportunity for community engagement for those two sites, and that work will be happening in tandem at the same time all next year. You've also heard about several of the buildings that our board has already voted to take action on to demolish across the district. And I think there were 7 sites that were already approved, or 7 on non-active sites. 7
Demolitions.
7 demolitions. And so part of the ask, you can go to the next slide, Alex. Part of the ask is for this committee to join us in our efforts in thinking about what would be the future use for these sites. And the third ask was around our integrated facility master planning process that will launch in the fall. Alex talked a little bit about the previous FMP process, where we landed with that. That was an engagement for over, I think, 18 months or so.
16.
16 months. And so this is another long-term project that the district will be engaged in beginning in the fall. And so there will be multiple touch points for engagement and support from the board committee, our board, and the community at large. So those were the 3 areas related to realignment that we certainly wanted you to have on your radar as we're thinking about additional opportunities for engagement as well as support. So we'll close there, and then certainly be happy to entertain any questions that you have, thoughts, reflections related to the content that we've shared.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman. Before I open up for public comment, do any committee members have any initial questions, thoughts, or anything you would like to ask Dr. Chapman, Alex, Dr. Brown? We can certainly have that dialogue now. Mr. Kennedy.
I always have questions.
Thank you.
So I don't know who this question is for. Someone mentioned about the student try to follow the teacher the best way possible. As they're going to the close of the schools, is there any type of engagement or anything as far as the teacher, communicating that with their students, especially the elementary students, in their new phase?
Talking about Broadley and Moeller.
Yeah, because I'm thinking if they're going to a new school and they just built this trust with these teachers, that might be a little tough, trying to build trust with a whole new group of teachers as well. So.
Yeah, so there's a few layers to that. So when you think about a transition, all of our students typically transition from one grade to the next every year, and they typically would have a different teacher the next year. If I'm in 3rd grade this year, next year I'm going to be in 4th grade, I'm going to have a new teacher. Even if there's no school transition that's happening, right? I'm staying at the school. That's different for more of some of our specialized programs. We have some programs where if you receive special ed services, the classrooms may be a K through 2 classroom or 3 through 5 classroom. And so what Dr. Brown was alluding to when he was talking about those transitions, for some of our students, more vulnerable students who receive more supports, we certainly want to try to minimize those transitions for them as much as possible. So there will be an attention to prioritize those relationships for our students where possible.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other questions from Ms. Quay?
Yeah, I was going to say, again, the residents and folks that I work with, one of the things I hear parents say all the time is, when my child moves, what's going to be better for them? In other words, what are the new programs, Ms. Barnes? We know it's a new building. We know the building looks better than the building we're in. But what is going to enhance my child's education?
Yeah.
I think we should emphasize those if we know them.
Yep, and I want to certainly, we could talk about that just for a few minutes, because I think it would be helpful for even our committee members and for those who are watching to really be able to speak to that. So first of all, when we go back to the slides that we shared tonight, Alex, if you could go back to the slides that we were for Broadley and Moeller in the presentation. So what we named as a part of the transition of the realignment for these two schools. Both of these schools, Moeller, we are transitioning students into newer facilities. These are facilities that we have invested in as a community. These are newer buildings. They look newer, they feel newer. There's more modern learning spaces. It's a totally different feel. There's more windows. They're airy. There's more sunlight. You don't feel as if you're in a dark old building that was built almost 100 years ago. I don't know the age for Moeller, but it was a long time ago. It was over more than 50 years, right? That's number one. And that is the same for Moeller as well as Broadley. Number two, Dr. Brown mentioned this when he was speaking earlier, is that our goal is to provide the specialized programming that students need in their neighborhood school. And so when we have so many schools and we're spreading those services out over so many sites, that becomes more of a challenge. So if we have ESL students or students who need ESL services that attend Broadley, we want to make sure that they could access those services in their home school and not be forced to leave their neighborhood school and go to a different school. Same with special ed services. We want to make sure that the students who live in that community can access the services that they need so that they can be successful in their neighborhood school. Another component that we're looking at is when we're able to, we have, for example, an average size elementary school, which is what we'll be able to offer at Eastgate and East Columbus and Fairmore. It also means for like the unified arts that we'll have, that those teachers will not have to necessarily be split between multiple buildings.
Okay.
So for example, if you have an elementary school with maybe 100 or 200 students, you get art 1 day a week. You get music 1 day a week. You get library maybe 1 day a week. You get PE 1 day a week. It makes it challenging for an administrator to schedule those classes when those unified arts teachers are only there 1 day a week. It makes it challenging for to have a robust team of unified arts teachers that can work together 5 days a week to plan programming for the school community. If they want to do a mural, guess what? You can only do the mural on Mondays. You can't work on it all week. So it's going to take one school, maybe months to do a project because of the services are only offered 1 day a week. So at the elementary level, when we're talking about robust programming, we're talking about just the complement of services that every elementary school should have. Right. We're naming that that's not currently the case, but that is the ideal state that we're trying to get to, and that all students should have access to that. Yes. And so then that allows for more integrated planning. That allows for more programming. Perhaps you can have, the art teacher and the music teacher working to support the special program that's coming up next month. Not being at the school is certainly a huge physical barrier to not being able to be involved. Nonetheless, that unified arts teacher is supporting 5 other schools. Yeah. So they're traveling to 5 different schools across the city, and they're probably not within the same neighborhood. And they're trying to show up to be their best selves for each one of those communities, and it makes it really challenging to do that. So thank you for asking that question. That's just a few of the considerations that we're thinking about as we are when we say programming, and that's just an example for elementary. There's different examples for middle school and high school. We shared some of those examples in the presentation that we made for the board last week when we did the full presentation. So you can go back to that presentation and watch that. There were slides. We talked about sports. We talked about advanced placement courses and other courses. Certainly when you get to the high school level, you're talking about lots of other course offerings and electives. So those are a few examples that I certainly want everyone to be able to speak about when we talk about the difference between having a school where it's a really, really small school, we're not able to offer the complement of services for the students that we believe they deserve.
Thank you.
Dr. Chapman, real quick. So Broadley is 1952 and Moeller is 1967.
Thank you.
Whoa.
Thank you. So,
Pretty old. Any other, Mr. Jenkins?
So my last question, I think, is based off of, I think it's 5 schools total that, out of those 2 schools that we placed, 2 for Moeller and 3 for Broadley. For the capacity of those schools, will the growth of the neighborhood also work with the capacity of these schools? So if the neighborhood is growing, will it fit with the growth of these schools as well?
Mm-hmm. So I think that Dr. Brown can speak to that. He's looked at the enrollment not only for the 2 schools that we're discussing, but also the enrollment and the boundary process for the receiving schools as well.
Yeah, certainly whenever we involve families in a boundary process, we don't want to have to do that more than once during their child's tenure at a school. So you want to adjust a boundary once, have everybody fit where they're going to go, and not have to come back to that. So when we were looking at these, yes, absolutely, we anticipate that students will be able to fit within the neighboring schools in both cases. There's sufficient capacity at neighboring schools to be able to accommodate this, not just in the present, but also looking forward in terms of enrollment projections for our community as well.
I have a quick question. So I was wondering if the district has like a formal, the proper word is escaping me, but like debrief process after this occurs. And I don't really mean from like a financial perspective or a facilities perspective, but you had the timeline of, oh, in the winter they could go to the winter dance at the new school, and then in April they can have lunch buddies and they can go and have lunch at the new school. So when these students at Moeller and Broadley are settled in their new schools, is there like a committee or someone who is asking these families and really these kids, you know, was that beneficial to you? Like what percentage of kids did take advantage of that, or were they too nervous? So that way when we cross this again in the future, we can say, well, we thought the school dance thing was a great idea, but it really wasn't. Is there someone who's dedicated to looking at that like a year from now?
So, yes, that would be the short answer. We are definitely committed to continuous improvement, and continuous improvement means being reflective. We tend to call those after-action reviews, where we come together as a group and, hey, what did we learn? What worked? Hey, best laid plans don't always work out the way you intend. And so what could we learn from that, and how could we improve upon that the next time we approach this? And part of that means gathering feedback from the people who were impacted by that. Absolutely.
Yes, and thank you. Yes, after action report was what I could not think of.
And
I have this problem all the time, more frequently now than it used to.
And that's a great question, because it's been a long time since we have closed a building in Columbus City Schools. It's been a while. And so that's why our admin team took the last 6 months working on a plan for how to do this work intentionally and strategically. When the board voted to move forward with these 5 sites, we named that we are not going to transition all of these schools at the same time. We cannot do that. We need to certainly pace it out. We need to be intentional about the transition. We started with the 2 elementary schools. We will learn from this process, and we will certainly be very mindful of how we improve the process, the engagement, the supports for the families as we continue to have this conversation. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I was just going to piggyback and saying having that, just being able to evaluate and having that kind of fluidity, it allows you to honor the uniqueness of those communities, right? Because an event or an engagement that might be a hit on this side of town, like it may not necessarily meet the needs of the community in another side of town or for another school. So I think that offers the flexibility to truly understand like what makes most sense for that particular community.
Absolutely. And we named that there is no one-size-fits-all approach for any of the decisions that we're making around the realignment work. Each school community has its own identity, its own history, and we want to be able to honor that through the process. So we're allowing for space for that as well. Thank you.
I don't think I've ever come to a meeting and not always thrown a thank you to Lee Cole's group, because that's your front line. Those family ambassadors and those attendance coordinators that you have, they know their communities.
Yeah.
And they're very good at what they do. And I think in terms of coming up with events and activities to put on for kids coming in, as well as the children that are there, I think we should depend on them a lot.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I know that our school communities will be very, very welcoming to the new students and families and staff. And so they're already thinking, I mean, they've been paying attention to this work and following it. And so they'll be very sensitive to the needs of the students, the families, the staff throughout the process.
Absolutely. Any other questions or comments before we invite our guest speakers or community comment? And in a moment, colleagues, we will go back to the last slide there, Alex, if you don't mind, where our charge and what our contribution as a committee will look like. And I do have some handouts for you at your station that we'll briefly talk through. Certainly we'll have more robust conversation around next steps. But for now, if I can please welcome to the podium Miss Glover, or actually Miss Eubanks, if you want to join us, welcome this evening, and you do have 3 minutes for your public comment.
Good evening. And thank you for having me. I am Sheila Eubanks. I am the chair of the Far South Area Commission. Let me tell you how this started today. It was actually a Facebook post of Dashler under demolition. So it kind of like just started me, and I'm like, you know, our schools are going away. But anyway, thanks to Chair Vera, she reached out and told me about this meeting. This has been an excellent conversation. I like what I hear. And just to piggyback on what you just spoke about, the ambassadors will play a good part in this. And you might even reach out to the community residents that worked on the original master plan. And I'm so happy to hear you guys talk about the master plan. I actually sat on the committee towards the end. And the other thing, maybe you utilize your commissions in the areas that you need some additional people to work. You pretty much covered everything I had a question about. You mentioned about, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but you mentioned about being able to fit into the schools and making sure that's correct. I also want you to keep in mind, on the Far South Side, and I only can speak to the Far South Side, and just some history, I've been there since 1967. So can't nobody tell me about, I live in Southfield, graduate of Marion Franklin. We also want to make sure you take into consideration, there are about 2,000 units of new apartments coming. We wanted to, that's one thing we never hear about is the new development. And we look for more because, again, we have the land. Demolition of Berry, there was question, has there been, well, you guys answered my question because there is the possibility of the new campus, which was what was stated in the first master plan. The other thing that had me, we talked of money, that the money that's going to be a challenge. I was talking to somebody and it was like there might be some creative ways to come up with money to help purchase or build the new campus at Marion Franklin Berry. And one thing you didn't mention when we talked about Berry, that's actually 30 acres right there on that one piece of parcel. Because I had to go look to see if it was 2 parcels or 1. So that's a lot of acreage. We could do a lot of stuff with that. The Buckeye kids, we talked about the students at Buckeye. Another question we had, there was no mention of where those students would go. I know in the past we talked about Marion Franklin, but when you guys said that and the vote went on, there was no mention. So I just thought it was another commissioner that had that question. Far South Area Commission will be happy to host a community meeting to, kind of help with that. I just kind of, as I listened to the meeting, it was so informative. I just kind of jotted down some little notes. And of course, when y'all said Marion Franklin is still on the table, that kind of shut me down a little bit. So thank you very much. And again, I don't know where I got that from, but they were saying there is a way. I know we're all worried about going back to the voters, because I got a feeling we'll have some issues, but I think we could come up, there's some way that we can come up with that money. Last but not least, when you're doing your community meetings, today was wonderful. Be transparent. Utilize the ones in the community to which the parents know. And I think you guys, the way you talked today, it wasn't nothing left to say. So that was a song back in. But yes, in any way that the Far South Area Commission can help, please let us. We'll be happy to.
Oh, we're gonna be calling, don't worry.
Huh? What'd you say?
I said, we will be calling you, don't you worry.
But I think that was it. That was my main thing. We wanted to make sure you guys took in consideration the communities that have new apartments coming and making sure, because those apartments are 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and 4-bedroom, which denotes families. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and leave. I am freezing. I forgot my jacket. But again, thank you very much on behalf of the Far South Area Commission. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Commissioner Eubanks. We appreciate your attendance. So colleagues, so circling back to the last slide that Mr. Trevino had in terms of the committee's contribution to the work ahead, which I'm really excited to see a lot of the thought that's gone into everything from the boundary process. There's a lot of engagement, conversations. And so as you noticed, if we can you pull the last 3? Oh, maybe. Well, we'll wait for them.
Behind the scenes.
Yes, just behind the scenes.
Right.
If we can please put the last, there we go. Thank you so much. I'm just a visual person, so I like to see it. But the call to action, I think, is very clear tonight. And obviously, hearing what we've all heard tonight, obviously, if there are things that are piquing your interest, that you're like, I got a resource, I know a person, That's what this committee is for. Community engagement and advocacy, we are an extension of our community's voice. That's why you all are here. That's why, you know, your expertise was sought out. And so understanding that as a committee, you have a voice, things that I can take back to my board colleagues, things that we can take back to the superintendent and her team. So tonight, I just want to walk through a proposed strategy for community engagement around the future use of closed or demolished school facilities. At your table, you will find two worksheets, one labeled phased work plan for community engagement, and the other around committee deliverables planning phase. And so tonight, what I am also wanting to put out there for your consideration is, you know, obviously the board, the district, we go on recess in the month of July. But as you can see, a lot of this work is time sensitive, with the idea of a lot of these conversations and engagement happening in the fall. So what I would like to propose is a working group, a subcommittee group out of this group that has interest in or capacity to meet throughout the remainder of June, in July, virtually. It'll be a less formal process, but being able to really come together to spend these next couple of months diving deeper into a draft engagement plan, specifically around the future use of vacant properties. Obviously, a lot of this work will also overlap, because I believe some of the strategies that we'll have for that can also tie into boundary conversations in addition to FMP. For the sake of this conversation, I've provided just some phases, being able to spend the month of June and July as a working group. And within that working group, if there are individuals that have an interest in being leadership of that group, right? Like obviously, I am the one of the leaders of this committee, but the working group is a little bit different. So if any of you have the capacity to co-lead in that space, we can have that conversation. I can also provide any kind of support for you all to also meet outside of these meetings, because I think that's a big part of what I believe is going to be required to be in preparation for the fall. And so looking at some of our deliverables, which we heard tonight around a contribution of an engagement plan, we have the facilities. One of the facilities that was not highlighted, but I also know is a part of this, is the 270 building that we're also in tonight. So that is a building that we still have to have conversations around. What are we going to do with this building? Because eventually the team members that are here are going to be relocating. So there has to be a conversation. What that conversation is with who could be a very different conversation, or maybe it's the same conversation, but certainly wanting to be able to gather your input. So you'll see here a phased planning process for the month of June and July, with deliverables of providing a draft strategy, an engagement toolkit. What could that look like? What I would like to be able to do is have these items to be able to share with my board colleagues at that second August board meeting. So ideally, we would work on it, have another robust conversation as a committee at the top of August for our committee meeting, with the idea then I would take all of the recommendations to my colleagues at the second board meeting in August. Lastly, you'll see here, so all of that is you can look over. Certainly we'll have more conversations. And in the immediate, some of the committee deliverables for the planning phase for that working group, I really want to be able to lean in, like even hearing some of you tonight, just really being able to think about what are the questions that we're going to ask the community. I think oftentimes we come up with questions, but certainly wanting your input on brainstorming and refining the questions we'll ask the community about future use of closed or demolished school sites. Obviously being able to really think about land use priorities, honoring legacy, which we heard, community hopes and concerns. The second deliverable would be identify and recommend subject matter experts. Who is not at the table? Who should be a part of these conversations? As we heard from Ms. Eubanks this evening, our area commissioners, is it a neighborhood group? Is it a nonprofit leader? So really thinking deeply about who are some of those planners, historians, nonprofit leaders, parents, that we can be able to start to pull together some additional names of folks, whether they support the committee's work in the engagement strategy, or if these are just names that we can then pass on to our superintendent and team for consideration. So being able to individually provide 2 to 3 names per member with contact information and relevance. Next item would be to suggest engagement formats and locations. Going back to Amber's question, how do we know like what's the right engagement strategy, right? So thinking about walk and talks, pop-ups, forums, should we have a tent at every football game come kick off in the fall? Do we need to be at the basketball games? Do we need to be at the recitals? So just thinking about not only engagement from a digital standpoint of creating a survey, but how can we go into the communities? How can we set up presence? And I know we're going to talk about the back to school fair here shortly, but just looking at opportunities that already exist within the district that we can be intentional about creating presence and opportunity to collect. So the deliverable for that would be to submit at least 2 formal ideas and 1 to 2 possible venues, review the draft engagement strategy so that we can come back to the full committee at the top of August. And then lastly, support community outreach, right? So being able to empower ourselves with the education so that we can go out and provide this information to the community at large. Like Ms. Quay mentioned, being able to arm ourselves with this information is one thing, but actually going out and sharing it with the parents, sharing it with the partners that you work with. So being able to think about at least 3 groups or networks that we can all individually commit to going and presenting this information. So those are just initial thoughts that I came up with for the committee deliverables along with our phased work plan. Like I said, I do want to be able to establish some kind of working group over the summer. So I'll be sending a follow-up email if you have an interest and capacity in being a part of that. It's not required, so I just want to note that. It's not part of what you signed up for initially, but understanding that we have a lot of work to do between now and the fall. The realignment process is happening, and so certainly this is an opportunity for us to have real influence and real impact in the future of our district's planning. And so if you have interest, capacity, you're welcome to shoot me an email in advance, but I will also be sending an email out, creating just we'll figure out what days of the week work for everyone. We could do a virtual style, and a lot of it will be working virtually so that you can still kind of hang out, do what you need to do throughout the remainder of June and throughout July to be prepared for a rollout. I know it's an aggressive timeline, but I feel like we could do it. Maybe that's just me, but any questions or thoughts about any of that before we transition into our next topic? You got something for me?
In my head, I just said, I love this.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. I can see you looking at me like, you got something? Okay, all right. Well, I appreciate that. And this is a draft, so this is not the be-all, but I wanted to be able to provide us with a starting point because obviously this is a lot of information, a lot of things that are to come. But if we can approach it in a bite size, right? If your expertise is around, creating what those questions are, maybe that's your piece of the pie. If your piece is really about, okay, I know a lot of people in this subject matter, maybe that's your piece of the pie. So we can certainly look at the work and divide it in that way and then figure out the sequence for how we kind of connect and update each other. Because we want to be able to provide the district and with my board colleagues as much of a community-facing strategy as possible. Any other thoughts or questions?
I just think this is an excellent time to start doing this talking. Summertime is very, very busy.
Yeah.
In terms of the events, on my list I've got down here, co-locate with all the city events. There are specific neighborhood events. There's national night outs. I mean, all of this is happening in the next 2 to 3 months. We should have a table at each one of these events.
Absolutely.
And so, that's my thought.
Thank you. Any other questions or thoughts before we move on? No, thank you, Dr. Chapman. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Bress. So at this time, we will move on to our final agenda item, our back to school fair, item 3.3, and I will hand it over to Ms. Lee Cole.
Good evening. Does anyone need a break to just stand up and shake out and get
Hot chocolate.
No candy today.
No candy today. Treasure cook's not here.
Well, thank you so much for, again, taking time out of your very busy schedules to be a part of this community engagement and advocacy committee. So it is certainly appreciated, and really looking forward to your feedback for what we have going on, coming up this summer, specifically in August. So, Board Chair Vera, Superintendent Chapman, I'd like to walk you through a update on the Back to School Fair. So, permission to engage. We in the Office of Engagement, what we like to say is we bring learning to life. We believe that we are the bridge between families, communities, and schools. As you well know, our department is divided into 3 divisions, which is customer relations, family engagement, and then community engagement and partnerships. And our primary goal is to develop mutually beneficial relationships between our families, communities, and schools. Now, the founding principle or theory in which we work in is what we call the 4 core communities of engagement. This is a theory that we've developed that really broadens how we approach our work. What we believe is if we nourish the soil around our children, which is our families, we can uplift our students by investing in families, which then strengthens communities, empowers our city, and then grows the region. And we do this by really concentrating and focusing on our schools, our family, our community. Our community means our internal community, our community that touches our students every day, and then our everyday Joe and Jane taxpayer, who really control the way we work, educate, and how we conduct our business. They do so with our vote. And then our business community and our nonprofit community. There are a lot of resources that are circulating around the city, and if we all band together and work together as one, we can strengthen the whole, which is the future, which is our children. What you see before you, we've shared before, is truly our framework. Our framework is how we develop rich and robust partnerships with our external business community, then how we also develop and connect our community with our schools. And how we do that is we take our building data, we also have things called One Needs plans, and that's where our principals and our staff really take a deep dive to see how things are actually going and functioning in our schools. We take that information, overlay that with our board goals and guardrails, the superintendent's vision, and then the overall vision of the district. Taking all of that information, looking at industry trends, looking at what's needed in our community and how things are going in the society as a whole to, again, strengthen our entire ecosystem. So we've been at work. Using this 4 core community, the 4 core communities of engagement, again, taking that building data, the One Needs plan has really delivered results. We've been doing this and laying the foundation over the past year or so. So what you see is kind of a culmination of some of our work just over the past year. We have been able to secure over $100,000 in funds directly to some of our schools. Most recently, Alter State, an organization that is coming to Easton, has contributed to Oakland Park, East Linden, and Ennis, $20,000 apiece for those schools so the teachers can buy the necessary supplies that they need in their building. This supports our board goals of equity, and it also supports the district's overall mission. We were able to revive the VEX robotics competition and bring in Expo. This allows us to focus on STEM, bringing in community partners, being able to showcase not only to the students that as they're competing in robotics, there are actual career paths that they can pursue. So bringing these type of events and environments to our schools by working with our community partners. This also supports our Portrait of a Graduate attributes of creativity and technology. We've done some things with our Legacy Lights banner initiative. The first installation was done at Fort Hays, and this allows the greater Columbus community, anyone that's driving down the street, visiting our incredible city, can see these banners outside of our building that not only highlights what's going on in the building, but it also showcases the legacy and the rich history of our buildings as well. Those will, I think 12 additional schools will go online this summer. So you'll see those banners popping up around our high schools at the conclusion of this year. And then also we've done family game nights. For all of you parents out there, you know how challenging it is sometimes to help your kids or grandkids with their homework, because the way you showed your work back in the day may not be the way they show their work today. So we have done things like family game nights, math everywhere, to offer families a refresher so that they're able to support their kids with what the curriculum is today, and to kind of help bridge that gap in fun, innovative ways. And again, that supports a lot of our Portrait of a Graduate attributes. It also looks at our math and literacy goals that are established by our superintendent and the Board of Education. And lastly, one of the things, the center photo is a partnership. We've developed proactive, robust partnerships, and kind of one of our pride and joys that we were able to develop is one with the City of Columbus and the Department of Building and Zoning. What started out as an internship program for construction art students at Fort Hays has now blossomed into an apprenticeship program where we have 2 students who, one will be working with the City of Columbus, and one currently is an apprentice with the City of Columbus. The Department of Building and Zoning was able to lobby the state to create this apprenticeship program, and this was created through a partnership with the Fort Hays Construction Arts. And starting this fall, they will be breaking ground on renovating 2 homes on Leonard Avenue, and that's in partnership with Habitat for Humanity and Building and Zoning. So we have been at work being able to, again, proactively pursue partnerships that enrich the community, enrich our children, and ultimately we're looking to grow the region. So alongside, as we've been aligning our values, nothing that we have been able to produce highlights it more than the Columbus City Schools Back to School Fair. And this was launched in 2022 as a small little back to school fair with about 7,500 people, has grown into a robust, really one of the prized programs in Central Ohio, one of the largest community back-to-school programs. Last year, we had over 12,000 attendees. We gave away over 9,000 backpacks. We gave away meal kits. We had, now it's escaping me, the Red Cross do over 600 hands-on CPR events. So we are really looking to learn from what we've done in the past and create a dynamic, robust, one amazing experience for our families in Columbus City Schools. So let's fast forward. And just like that, we just got out of school, and now we're talking about going back to school. So the Back to School Resource Fair is August 16th, 2025. And if you can check your emails, we did invite you to see if you would like to volunteer at the fair. So this is our 4th annual, and we have some pretty big, audacious goals. We want to see about 13,000 people attend. We would really appreciate it if the community can level off at 13,000, and we remain at 13,000 for a few years. But our targeted attendance is about 13,000, and we're looking to give away about 10,000 backpacks and donations and school supplies there. Nationwide Children's Health Clinic will also be there to give wellness exams. We're looking for the Red Cross to again do hands-on CPR. And we're also looking to have about 100 vendors and community organizations on site, as well as district departments as well. This is an incredible opportunity for our families to ask questions of CCS staff, meet some of the departments, go to central enrollment if they have questions there, but ultimately it's to make sure that our students are ready and able to hit the ground running on day 1. So after doing this for For the past 3 years, we've really been able to dive into the data. And what the data has shown us is that there are a couple of key points that we really need to address. And some of those things are decreasing the wait time for the backpack lines. If you have been to the past 3 fairs, there are quite long lines for backpacks. So what you'll see in the upcoming slides are some strategies and tactics that we have for decreasing the wait time for backpacks. Also, we have our families that tend to come early, so we have some ideas on how to keep them occupied so that when we open at 10, everyone comes in at 10 o'clock instead of trickling in around 8:30, 9 o'clock. We want to improve our volunteer system, create more robust staff recovery zones, kind of realign our site map to, again, decrease the wait time on the lines, but really take advantage of the vastness of the Fort Hays site, increase the amount of spacing between our vendor tables, and also enhance our on-site ESL services. So all the images are from last year's back-to-school fair, but I will walk you through some of our strategies on updating for the 2025 back-to-school fair and how we propose to resolve some of these issues. So the overall site plan, again, families tend to arrive about an hour and a half before I guess the campus opens at 10 o'clock. So this year, what we have done, again, we've closed Jack Gibbs from Cleveland Avenue to the 670 West entrance. This year, we have partnered with Urban One Radio, and one of their offshoots is La Mega. La Mega and Radio One will have activities and a DJ to kind of keep everyone in a holding pattern on Jack Gibbs Avenue with some fun activities. And with those 2 stations working together, which is actually one, but the 2 programs, I guess that's stations, right? The 2 stations will be able to have bilingual capacity. So families will hear songs in Spanish, they'll also hear songs in English, find that camaraderie. Again, our Portrait of a Graduate, building global empathy, but be able to have fun. They can either dance to Mary J. Blige or Bad Bunny. It doesn't really matter. The wobble's all the same steps. So they will be out there in advance of the event to keep everyone kind of in that holding pattern before they enter, and gates open at 10 o'clock. Families, once they enter, over the past 3 years, attendees have gravitated to making one line for the backpacks. So this coming year, what families will see is multiple lines for backpacks. We've relocated the backpack stations into 2 locations. There will be one station that is for K-2, and those will be the smaller backpacks. And then there will be another larger station with about 20 tables and 10 separate lines that will run perpendicular to the building that will have the larger backpacks, which will cater to students in grades 3 to 12. What we believe is by having it this way, our goal is to decrease the wait time in line. We will time to see if we can get everyone in and out. The target is about between 6 to 8 minutes. And if we can do that, then people will have more opportunities to go to the vendor tables and then get supplies. This year, we also separated the supplies from the backpacks. The supplies will be in between the shot and the back building in 4 separate locations, thereby forcing everyone to kind of spread out and go to the individual lines instead of having one line at a time. And I know Board Member Vera, who was on the supply station last year, will probably greatly appreciate that tweak into the program that we're doing this year. Now, creating a welcoming environment for all. What we learned last year was that our ESL population, the way we tackled being able to have translation services, needed another little tweak. Last year, we had our bilingual liaisons, and they were wearing language shirts so that anyone who spoke that language, first they can identify, see the shirt, and then see the language in their actual language on the shirt, and then gravitate to them. So this year, we will have our bilingual liaisons stationed at different areas that are kind of our high question areas. Then we will have section leads all along vendor row who will have what you see at the last photo, are pocket talk devices. That will enable them to answer questions and be able to have one-on-one conversations, and it's translated into the device, and then we'll be able to give them the directions and answer the questions as they arrive. Excuse me. Another feature that you will see at the Back to School Fair this year are balloon arches. This utilizes a concept called accessible design. The balloon arches will be able to identify to people that the backpacks are here. They will also have the icons of the school supplies on the arches, so whether you can read, as long as you can see a pencil and you can see it about 7 to 8 feet in the air rather than on the ground, which immediately disappears after the line forms, you will be able to share with parents where exactly the supplies are that they are able to pick up. So that's those are a couple of the new features that we're doing at this year's Back to School Fair in order to create a welcoming environment for all. Now, budgeting for success. We anticipate that the budget for this year's Back to School Fair will be about $51,000. That will allow us to accommodate an attendance of 13,000 and then have our 100 vendors, our district departments. Overall, our goal is to have this to be a self-sustaining event. With our fundraising goal this year is $40,000, and I'm proud to say that to this date, on the 10th, we have raised $33,000 in these efforts. This is in addition to the donations that we are also collecting to be able to provide backpacks to our families, backpacks and school supplies to our families. And what you see here is a general breakdown of our expenses. Our largest expense, of course, the giveaways. And with the current climate, we are expecting a decline in the amount of donations that we receive. So we have been able to supplement that with, of course, the donations and then being very strategic in the timing of buying some of the supplies in anticipation that it will be a decline from what we have received in the past. Our second biggest expense, of course, is CPD and traffic safety. We have 10 special duty officers who participated last year and were able to offer their services to us. So we have submitted the same request. As we watch the number of registrants up until about a week or so before the event, if we need to increase from the 10 officers, we'll do so. Also, we use another company to do the signage and assist with the road closures. So we have the orange barrels, we have electric signs to be able to make sure the community knows that this street is closed. The entrance to 670 West is also closed. And then we also have school buses placed in strategic areas to ensure that cars cannot advance down the street during the event. We are still actively looking for sponsors for our event, but as of today, here are our sponsors who have committed. We're very thankful for NBC4, who has been our arm-in-arm partner from day one, doing Stuff the Backpack drives across the city. So we are very grateful for their participation in this effort. Western Governors, OSU, has also signed on to be a sponsor. Fifth Third Bank, Columbus Recreation and Parks, that has been a tremendous partner over the years. Of course, Nationwide, Molina Health, Making a Difference Foundation, Al Edmondson has been a champion since day one and is a catalyst for the success of this program, especially in its first year. And then the Columbus Chamber of Commerce. So for all of you attending and for our families watching at home, again, the Back to School Fair is August 16th. Please register. We need you to register just so we can get a count. The registration, we don't hold backpacks if you registered, but it is one backpack per child who attends. So we are just looking to be able to get an accurate number, or as close to accurate as possible, for the number of attendees that we can expect. So please, 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 just follow the QR code and register to that. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I open the floor for any questions.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
As far as the volunteer, can it be like juniors or seniors in high school?
Yes. If any of our volunteers who are in high school, we ask them to fill out the registration form, and we will make sure that their not internship hours, their community service hours paperwork is signed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good question. And it's something to think about, you know, as a committee, you know, how do we want to be involved with the back to school fair too? Obviously, this is a great way to volunteer as we're thinking through community engagement strategies as it relates to the realignment work. I know that's conversation we can have over the next several weeks. As a board member, I'm there every year, but certainly this is also an opportunity as a committee. If we want to have more of a presence, that's something we can talk about because our meeting that month will be that week that this is happening. So we meet that Tuesday on the 12th, I believe, and then the back to school fair is the 16th. So certainly be thinking about that as you are hearing about some of our needs as it relates to sponsors, volunteers, in-kind donations. Please feel free to connect those individuals with Ms. Cole because it is a collective effort. It's a big event. Every year it just continues to grow. And it really is an opportunity for us to meet our students exactly where they're at and their families. So certainly thinking about ways that as a committee we can contribute. I know my colleagues on the board are always thinking about that as well. So certainly wanted to plug that out early if we have a desire to. I mean, we can have shirts. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. But certainly we'll have more conversation as the weeks go on. Any other questions, thoughts, or anything before we wrap up, either for Lee or Dr. Chapman?
I have one.
Yeah, Ms. Barnes.
The 100+ vendors, who recruits them? And then my second question is, do the people actually go to their tables? Is there some incentive for the parents to go to the vendor tables?
Most of the vendors have giveaways, and their giveaways are school supplies. So the parents just go to the different tables to collect the different school supplies. We put out an email and ask who would like a table. There is no cost to have a table, and then we review all of those applications. Usually there are social service agencies, different governmental agencies, after-school programs. There are different things directed towards education. And this year, our area commissions will share one table.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions, Amber? No? Okay, very good. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Lee, for this presentation. As a reminder, the committee will not have a formal meeting in the month of July. The board is on recess, and so we will not have a formal meeting on the calendar, but certainly, as I indicated earlier on, for those who have interest in a working group over the summer, more information will be sent out about that. In addition to just some of the presentations we heard tonight, that will also be included in our follow-up meeting to you all. And at this point,
Do we approve the minutes?
Yes.
Approve the agenda?
We can though, just to make sure. So before we close tonight, if I could please just have a motion for item 2.1, the approval of the minutes for May 13th, 2025.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Vera?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Ms. Britt?
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Ms. McLeod?
Yes.
Ms. Snyder?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Wonderful. So at this time, I would just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Please call the roll.
Ms. Vera?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Ms. Britt?
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Ms. McLeod?
Yes.
Ms. Snyder?
Yes.
All right, well, thank you all and have a great evening.